It's taken my family generations to perfect the perfect curry. Patat makes perfect.
The online MBA program at Boise State is the only way I think I would go back to school. I can customize it around my schedule. My MBA degree will expand my skill set and help me pivot if it needs to be in the future.
Dear Acorns, I was 19 when I got pregnant. I worked 3 jobs at once to keep us afloat. I never thought I could afford to invest.
Hold a zero-sum position and not be an ultranationalist.
I think that's unclear. I'd say probably not. But there's, like I said, the distinction here is blurry.
But don't you think? Don't you think that the distinction then of saying the one thing all of these fascist nations that you would probably consider, or at least ultranationalist nations, did have in common, was that the people themselves were instructed through both propaganda, government policy, various things like this. Their allegiance needed to go to the state first, compromising all other values.
Is it your claim, and correct me if I'm wrong, that like fascist states are following their ideology in good faith, and the ideology is what matters, and not the accumulation of power and the suppression of outgroups?
I think both matter. So okay, the core tenet of fascism is it's autocracy. So an accumulation of power is necessary to the ideology. So they're mutually exclusive. You can't have one without the other because it's part of the ideology that they incorporate as much power to themselves as possible in order to institute corporatism. That's the whole point.
Sure. So like an analogy I would use here, which I think might make my definition more intuitive, is that what fascism is trying to achieve is power. Like you said yourself, autocracy. The way it achieves that, it's going to have to appeal to some kind of justification with the public. This is what Stanley calls the pillar of propaganda, where they have to mask unpopular goals with like very popular values and like dramatic imagery that appeals to the masses, even if the underlying policy being justified by that imagery is actually not popular. So sort of zooming out, I would say ultranationalism and the mythic past is the rhetorical fuel and the pretext and the justification that is then used to centralize power and consolidate power, and then once that power has been centralized and consolidated, it is then used to undermine democratic institutions.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Let me see if I can steel man it, just so I can show you that I understand what you're saying.
Sure.
You're saying an accumulation of power is necessary. This accumulation of power is they're going to be using ultranationalist propaganda in order to promote what it is that it wants to do, right? Whether it's to outgroups or whatever its ultranationalistic policies are. That's what you're saying, right?
And the initial power grab itself.
Yeah, but here's where the delineation comes in and where we enter into the problematic zone, and why I think I have a way more coherent way to look at this than you do. People try to consolidate power all the time, right? And will do things which appear to be ultranationalistic, even though they're not ultranationalistic at all. You can see this in monarchies, for instance. You can see this in all sorts of different things that have nothing to do with fascism at all.
I agree.
Because it's ideologically based. So a monarchy can follow all of these steps that you're following for fascism and not be fascistic.
How
do you understand? Like, they wouldn't be fascists. They would just be monarchs or autocrats or something like this, but not fascistic. And so the delineation point comes in. What are we gathering the power for? We're gathering the power for this ideological purpose. That's what it's for.
No, Trump is not an ideologue to entrench the power and establish the power. And
it's not just power for this. It's not just power for the sake of power. It's ideological and power-based, but part of the ideology is power. Like Trump, for instance, in your view, right? I don't even think in your view he's an ideologue.
It's just a debate, and with Andrew Wilson, they're debating if Trump is a fascist or not.
He's more of a demagogue. He's a demagogue.
He's like a fascist pragmatist, if you want to call it.
He's just a demagogue from your view, right? Like he just does what. If I pull up the definition,
he's not ideological. I mean, he has actually no. Trump does have certain ideological things that I think are. His ultranationalism of like any country doing well means we're getting ripped off. China's they're laughing at us.
Yeah, a demagogue is a political leader who gains power by appealing to emotions, prejudices, and fears rather than using rational argument. Mm-hmm. That's where you would more or less put Trump, right? Is that
I wouldn't say exclusively, but that's a good description of him, yeah.
Yeah, okay, so he's more of a demagogue. Trump is not particularly ideological.
I agree.
He never has been.
But he
And
does
this
have
is the
some
problem.
ideologies, and the ones that he does have are not exactly like liberal democratic ideologies. They're pretty
I don't know,
authoritarian.
some of them
fascistic.
are. Like, a lot of them are. This whole,
Like he definitely has an authoritarian ideology.
like this whole, you pay and you can have citizenship, right? Things like this. That's not ultra-nationalist, and that's not ideologically based, right?
Sure,
It's just nationalistic based, maybe.
in terms of policy, he's not ultra-nationalist, but he's not running around advertising the gold card thing is like how he's going to make America great again. And actually, he gets a lot of shit from his base on that because
Well,
his
he says
base
he's gonna
has
make
bought
America
into the
great.
propaganda of ultra-nationalism.
Yeah, well, how he says that he's going to make America great again is, but he wants to go back to tariffs. But the problem, like fascist ideology, you have to understand that this is why we're using this specific word, and it's a very important word to use because it summarizes it. Let me pull it up, make sure that I got it here, so that I'm not saying.
I'm going to grab a
anything.
water bottle real quick, but I
Yeah,
can't hear you.
No problem. 1 second, let me get down to my definitions here.
If you haven't yet, hit that like button no matter where you're watching, folks. As you can see at the bottom right of your screen, Debate Con 7 in Houston, Texas, Saturday, January 31st. Grab your tickets now. We're expecting it to sell out.
Yeah, so fascism defined, yeah, so it's the genetic. So the idea there, when you can say there's a throwback,
Yeah.
like every president does a throwback. Basically, all of them.
I'm
do a
not saying anything
throwback.
about so what.
Yeah, hang on. They all do a throwback. Basically, all of them will throw back to like things were better, blah 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 blah. Otherwise, what are they coming in to do? Even with their progressive ideology, they usually will say things like, "Let's look at the policies from 20 years ago of this nation and how well they worked." And blah blah blah.
Progressivism is usually talking about creating like a new future, a better future, and actually rectifying past injustices, right?
Agreed. And here's where we run into the problem of palingenetic. Palingenetic is doing the same thing. What it's doing is it's making an appeal to the past for progressive values going forward. That's why the symbol is always a phoenix rising out of the ashes. That's what the whole point from fascist ideology is. What they're doing is they're making an appeal to the past for something new. Why do you think it was called the Third Reich? Not the First Reich, the Third Reich. They're appealing to the past to bring something new that's not that thing. It's not actually what that thing is. It's brand
Talking
new.
about against
It's
substance.
and it's systemic. It's system-wide, always system-wide. And the thing is like Trump's not trying to do that. His callback to policies, things like tariffs and shit like this, that is not bringing in massive systemic change. Not at a systemic scale. That's insane. And so where you go wrong here,
This is
when you
policy,
guys
though, not rhetoric.
when you guys say, yeah, but here's the thing, it's pure act. It's defined by fascists as pure act, not rhetoric. Act.
Okay, I'm not taking the pure fascist definition of their own twisted ideology, which they're obviously
Yeah, what are those
dressed up and
fascists?
making it seem
Yeah.
What do those fascists know about what they believe?
compared to scholars of the term. Yeah.
Oh, compared to the people who interpret their words? Yeah.
You have to hoard things to be a hoarder, you know. A gray world.
I mean, come on, man.
Academics Who
Are
spent
you,
Is it hard to wash long hair? No, it just takes more time to dry it and wash it.
are you
years of
serious
their
right
life
now?
reading.
Yay. I think more people should have long hair. In my opinion.
Primary sources.
Yeah, oh, do you mean the things I'm appealing to?
Yes, but then they look for common denominators between different primary
Like the thing
sources and
I'm
actually
doing
do a
right
descriptive
now?
analysis. No, you're zeroing in on one or two instances and then taking it at face value
No, I'm zooming in on all of the instances of fascism.
by your definition,
Oh, well,
which is obviously much more strict.
give me a country which fits your definition, and let's see if it fits with my definition of fascism better or yours.
I believe Jason Stanley said that Poland had a fascist phase, but then the fascists actually ended up losing to the liberal Democrats. So there have been countries where fascism has started
Okay,
to
what
rise,
about
but
Poland?
never actually won.
What about Poland? Do you think it was fascist?
I believe there was like an explicit move, and you'd have to check the details on this, towards centralization of government power. And
That's
also
not-
illiberal attitudes, right?
That's not fascist.
Not in isolation. I mean,
Yeah, so then what
Want me to
made it,
pull up
what
Jason
made it
Stanley's-
actually fascist?
You'd have to read his article about it. I don't know.
Well, you said, well, this is the thing. Like, I keep on
You asked
bringing
me
up
for an example.
I keep on bringing up actual fascist societies, their actual fascist policies, the
And state
actual
fascist
fascist
societies.
common denominators. You keep on appealing to a scholar's interpretation.
Yes.
Yeah, that's terrible. I want
You're
you to
pretending to
engage
be a
with what I'm
scholar.
saying.
I'm not going to
What do you
pretend like
mean
I'm a
I'm pretending
scholar.
to be a scholar?
I try to have humility.
We're
We're
just
just doing
doing-
one of the most
wait.
contested terms in social science.
We're just
and
doing
you think
appeals
you
to
figured
authority.
it out.
We're just doing appeals to authority.
To expertise.
No, it's an appeal to authority. I don't accept this authority as being an authority who's beyond other
You don't have
authorities.
to accept it, Andrew.
I don't. That's a fallacious form of argumentation. It's called an appeal to authority fallacy.
I'm not saying
You
because
need to be able to
scholar.
make these arguments.
Well, I heard the maintenance or the management out in the hallway, so I thought that they were about to come in here and do some kind of inspection, but they haven't stopped by yet, so maybe they're not coming.
Without specifically saying it's true because he says so.
Why?
You need to show me how it's true, period. Because it's a fallacy, it's fallacious.
Relying on
it's a
academics
literal-
in a field
yes.
to define the field as
No.
fallacious?
If it's the case that you say this is true because this academic says it's true, that's fallacious. That's an appeal to authority fallacy. You need to tell me why it's true, why it's actually true, not it's true because he says so.
Hold on. I never claimed a consensus definition of fascism, so you're like strawmanning what I'm even
So
saying.
tell me why what you're saying
I'm
is
saying
true.
that by my definition, which is clear, there's no amount of words I can say to you to justify my definition in your eyes. I'm just saying, well, what is the point now in going in circles on our definitions?
Well, no. I'm asking for you to give me like good, compelling justification based
I
on
would do that if
based
you
on
the substance of how Trump behaves, but you don't want to talk about it.
Yeah, go ahead. Name anything. I bet you I'll just cede the point, and we still won't get
Yeah, I
any
bet
closer
you
to
know
how he's a
there's
fascist.
no point in bringing it up because you don't want to engage with the actual actions of the Trump administration.
Well, we're not
But
here
I
to debate
expect-
the actual actions of the Trump administration. We're here
It's
to
probably
debate Trump
relevant
as
to
a
defining what
fascist.
they are. Trump doesn't
Then
just
use
exist
them.
in a vacuum.
Then
He's a-
use them. Define how that is a much more rigorous understanding of a historic movement, which is what I'm bringing up over and over again. All of the nations inside of this historic movement, all of the examples which they share in unison, you use an appeal to authority fallacy. This is true because he says so. How about you demonstrate the
Because he
truth of what
says
you're
so.
saying? Demonstrate that it's true that that's what fascism is.
You want me to
Show me how it's
You want me to
true.
demonstrate an objective definition of the word fascism?
I want you to demonstrate to me why we should believe that what you're saying about
You
fascism
don't
is
have
true
to.
in comparison
You don't
to
have
mine.
to believe
You don't have
anything,
to.
Andrew.
Don't have to.
There's literally no point in me sitting here for like the next hour and a half or 2 hours and just saying, this is my definition, this is why I think it's good. Well, liberal, I don't think it's good for these reasons. Well, those reasons are interesting, but I still don't think they're sufficient to negate my definition.
Yeah, so you don't.
Okay.
So let me just make sure I got this right. You don't believe that
I
the
pay
historicity
$670 for rent
of
in
fascism
Chicago.
should be incorporated into how we define.
Nice. Is there a decent place for that price?
fascism.
Of course it should, but not entirely on face value.
Okay, so which parts shouldn't we use?
The things that vary.
Like?
Ideology can actually vary significantly. Some might be more pragmatic and some might be more ideological. Like, I don't think Trump is really an ideologue. He might have a couple of really strong beliefs he has, but he has no real coherent ideology. Also, the way in which power is attained and maintained, there can be different specific ways that authoritarianism is consolidated, depending on how they engage with the courts.
Okay.
They might try to, for example, with Hitler's Enabling Act, he had it actually signed as legislation, but he had it done under duress where I believe like there were guards standing in the hallways, right?
So we've established
every instance of
in-
fascism has an Enabling Act.
So we've established that there has to be some unchanging pillars then.
Yes, I called that the fascist minimum in my opening statement.
Okay, yeah, so we have these unchanging pillars. And if we compare your unchanging pillars to my historic standard of all fascist nations which have ever existed, that you could ever come up with, and they all have mine in common, but they don't have yours in common, then why should we yield to you and not to me here?
Number one, I'm not asking anyone to yield to anyone, but how do they not have in common what I'm
That's good,
saying?
man.
Well, because in this case, the ultranationalism, which is practiced in fascist nations, has nothing to do with the nationalism, which is practiced by Trump. That's one example. All of these people.
You keep inserting your own definition of ultranationalism to like debunk my definition of fascism, which seems like not fair.
Well, wait a second. I'm giving you a coherent accounting of a historic movement. And so, because I'm giving you a coherent, understandable pillars, which are unchanging, between all of the existing fascist nations, what you're doing is you're saying, I'm appealing to this guy. That's it. That's all you're
He's
doing.
not just a guy.
But you are appealing to him as
He's
an authority, and his
He's written some
interpretation
of the
is right.
seminal works, like the 5 stages of fascism. What is fascism by Jason Stanley? Like these
So
are
you
highly
agree-
respected works in the field.
Yeah. So you agree that he's correct because he's an expert.
No, I prefer his definition because I think it's more useful.
So-
and you
so,
don't like that
okay.
definition.
Okay, so what makes it more useful than mine?
It's diagnostic. Your definition basically says we can't call it fascist till it's too late.
No, mine is
And
diagnostic.
until
as
the
well.
military is in the streets, we can't say it's fascism.
Mine is diagnostic as well. It's
Okay,
saying that there's
under your
triggers.
definition, what's the earliest phase we could call up something as fascist?
When it becomes, I would start with the pelaginetic.
Okay, can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, so I would start with the idea. Well, actually, you know what? I wouldn't even start with pelaginetic. I would start with the ideals of corporatism first. I think that that's the most necessary component.
So you think China is like fascist? They have like kind of state capitalism over there?
No,
So
no.
how are you defining corporatism then? Because I guess these words
Yeah.
kind of overlap.
Yeah, I understand that. I wrote this down.
It's pretty good
Corporatism
words.
defined. Corporatism is the political ideology and political system of interest, representation, policymaking, whereby corporate groups such as agricultural, labor, military, business, scientific, and guild associations come together and negotiate contracts with policy, collect. Bargaining on the basis of a common interest. And now,
I thought property tax was supposed to be like more expensive, but I don't know nothing about that.
in fascist history, corporatism specifically defined is pointing out that now corporate unions, so they were looking at trade syndicates as unions. Those unions now have some sort of collective bargaining power within the state. And so, like Mussolini, I think he made 22 of them. He made 22 actual syndicates, which were designed as corporate entities, which could serve as the body of the state and serve the collective interest of those industries for things like price fixing, goods distribution, things like this. China has nothing even close to that. Nothing.
Okay, I think this actually highlights an interesting question I've been meaning to ask you. When we're defining fascism, do you think the risk is greater in the definition being over-inclusive or being under-inclusive?
Depends on the context.
In terms of saying that this movement, this politician is fascist, should we be under-inclusive if we have to pick one of them? Because I think defining these things very, very neatly and precisely, as academics have been saying, even academics that agree with you, is very difficult. So I'm asking, if we have to pick between a definition that is over-inclusive and under-inclusive, I would say the over-inclusive definition is better because these things happening in our society represent a threat to like basic pillars of democracy
Yeah,
and freedom,
but-
and I'd rather nip them in the bud than wait for them to get to their apex.
Well, but that's a double-edged sword. So, and
Okay.
Paxton brings this up all the time too, right? That's why I think it's more accurate. And you probably even agree with me. It's got to be context specific because you also run the risk of unfortunately you're going to call guys like me a Nazi and a fascist.
I don't know
Right.
what you believe. I don't
Now,
think you're a
now
Nazi.
hang on, maybe not you, right? But your side, when Charlie Kirk died, was calling him a Nazi, okay? All over the place. And a fascist. They call him that too. I see him call ICE fascist. I see him
Don't
call
call
this
Colin
person.
Biden fascist. Yeah, people
I
say
see
the
him
word
call
around
yeah,
loosely.
yeah. So the thing is like, if you make it, this was Paxton's whole argument, right?
Oh, wow.
The reason he didn't want to label people as a fascist, it's so over-inclusive that then it becomes the standard fare that everything is fascist, even things which clearly aren't. And in this case, I'm saying, I think we can meet in the middle. I think that it doesn't have to be so over-inclusive as to be absurd, which I think your definition is, or so under-inclusive that we can't point out what the systems are, which is what my definition does. So I think we can have a happy medium here.
The thing is, like you're saying, it's over-inclusive, but like authoritarianism isn't like something that we can just shrug off as like, yeah,
Authoritarianism
easy
is fascism.
authoritarian.
Then bitch about
It's a pillar.
authoritarianism and stop bitching about fascism.
It's a pillar of the 3 pillars I gave you. I don't know.
Yeah,
how
but
you
it's
can
also a
repeat that.
pillar of monarchy. It's a pillar of
Yes.
autocracy. It's
And
a
as I
pillar-
said in my opening statement, there's a lot of overlap between
In fact,
fascism and other flavors of authoritarianism.
authoritarianism is a flavor of basically every ideology I can think of, actually. Now,
I wish they would teach us that shit in school instead of like all the useless shit that they did teach us.
when I'm thinking about it, I can't even
Okay.
think of one. So it's like, then it's
It would
talking
be like a
about
liberal democracy or authority.
You know what I wish they did in school? I wish they had helped us get credit. So like by the time we graduated from high school, we should all had like credit started. That would have helped a lot of people in life, I think.
Authoritarianism.
oh,
Like a system that is built off of negative rights.
comparative to the Articles of Confederation, right? Wouldn't you consider the Constitution to be highly oppressive?
It centralizes more power in the federal government.
Yeah, it's highly oppressive in comparison to
Oppressive, I don't know. I mean,
well,
depends on
it's
oppressive.
highly authoritarian in comparison to the Articles of Confederation.
Yeah.
I guess relative to it, sure.
Relative to it, right? Well,
Yeah.
that's what we're talking about. Everything we're talking about here, that
Yeah.
within the confines of your ideology,
Wait,
is
and what
relative
you're
to-
bringing up has been at like the centerpiece of debate in American politics, which is how much power should the federal government have. So that is actually
Which
something
is-
very relevant to call out and talk about.
and that's fine.
Right.
Talking
And I brought it
about
up in my opening statement.
talking about
when-
authoritarianism
when the
is fine.
feds are blocking off local police from investigating a crime scene, then
That's
I actually
fine.
feel that's pretty authoritarian.
you can
yeah.
talk about authoritarianism. Nobody's saying you couldn't, can't, or shouldn't, right? I talked about
Honest
it all the
question.
time.
Honest
Hang on,
question.
stop, bro. I talked about it all the time during
Okay.
COVID-19. The
Yeah.
authoritarians who wanted us to wear our state masks
Yes, they will own nothing and be free
and get our
everyone can have a
nice
vaccine passport.
little vaccine passports, right? Okay,
You
so
still have
sure.
your vaccine passport?
Authoritarianism, right? You sure bitch about it, have fun with it. But the problem is that that's not what you're doing. You're using loaded moral language to call people the most horrible things in history so that they can then adopt all of that fucking moral baggage. And that's what you're fucking doing.
Do you
That's
think
why,
that when I
that's
call
why you're
someone a
doing that.
fascist, I'm calling for violence against them?
Why, I don't understand. You wouldn't stop Hitler?
Of course I would. But I'm saying, let me
Well,
clarify.
that, hang on, that's really silly.
That me calling someone fascist necessitates violence against them.
No, but I think it creates, hang on. By itself, no.
Okay?
However, let me ask you this. Do you believe that if I got up every single day and demonized LGBTQ communities, that I would be creating stigma which would lead to violence against LGBTQ communities?
It depends on what you were saying, but it's very possible, yeah.
Is it likely?
I guess, yeah.
Okay, so would it not then entail that it's equally likely that if you get up every single day and stigmatize your opposition as being fascist, that would more likely lead to violence against those people?
Yeah, but you're talking about, what did you
Hang
use the
on.
word?
I just want a yes or no there.
They're not analogous, though.
Yeah, can you answer my question?
Why would I answer a question I don't agree with the premise of?
My premise is if you create stigmatization towards an outgroup, does that usually increase violence towards that outgroup?
It really depends on what the stigma is.
Usually.
I don't know that I can say one word. It definitely increases the likelihood of violence, but if it's from 5% to 15% or from 5% to 90%,
Then it's just
that's a different
acceptable.
question.
So it's just acceptable to increase it by 5%? That's just
Do you
acceptable?
want us to sacrifice language to compensate for the actions of other people I have no
Hey.
control over?
I'm just pointing out to you that if it's the case that you don't want there to be a
Wait,
stigmatization towards an outgroup, right? Because you think it's going to necessitate violence. I'm making the same argument backwards to you. I think the reason you should be more precise with what a fascist is, if you want to call them authoritarians and stuff like that, fine, have that argument. But that doesn't have the same loaded language which
Okay,
then
I
adopts
understand.
the Holocaust, right? It doesn't adopt the Holocaust. That's what
Okay.
calling people fascist does.
I just want to test your consistency here. So, do you think that Trump is like significantly increasing the threat of violence against people like Mark Kelly and Alyssa Slotkin when he calls for their hanging, or when he calls Jack Smith a deranged animal, or when he says that Rob Reiner was killed because he had TDS?
Do you realize? Okay, here, I'll just answer this. Let's say yes.
Okay, cool.
So then in turn, that would mean that your rhetoric is increasing the likelihood of violence back the other way, right?
My rhetoric is way less inflammatory than anything I just gave.
But it would be increasing the threat of violence the other way, right?
From 1 to 2%. Sure.
Okay, so it's just a threshold. It's not okay to increase
The
by
question is the
15%,
degree.
but it's 3%.
The question
Well,
is the degree.
what's the threshold that's okay?
Threshold that's okay for what? To call someone a fascist?
No, to increase this through stigmatization, violence against the mouth.
I'm not going to necessarily be choosing my language in accordance
What you up to, Justin?
with like what other people are going to do because
And
they
neither
use
is
that word.
Trump. You're saying that there's a
No,
threshold
you're saying that
which is
increases the threat of
acceptable.
violence.
You're
That's your
saying there's
argument.
you're saying there's a threshold which is acceptable and a threshold that isn't. Okay,
It's not
what
about
is it?
acceptable or unacceptable.
Okay, well then
It's a
if that's-
question of do we have to refrain from using certain language that we think is accurate just to abstain? Because, for example, when Trump
then
says those
stop
things,
bitching about what
hold
Trump
on.
says.
When Trump
Then
says
stop.
those things, he knows he's
Stupid.
lying. That's the difference.
Oh, now you're a soothsayer and you can tell when people are lying or not.
When Trump calls Jack Smith a deranged animal, he knows
Uh-huh.
he's lying. I can prove it to you.
Okay, prove it.
Okay, so when we look at the classified documents case, which Jack Smith prosecuted him on, we have a recording of Trump saying, and I'm going to quote here, "See, as president, I could have declassified it. Now I can't, but this is still a secret." And then publicly he said, after he was indicted for the same thing, and by the way, they become automatically declassified when I took them. Same
So?
thing with the election indictment. for
Yeah, so
Jack
what?
Smith, where
What does that
Trump
have to do with
knows-
him thinking he's a deranged animal?
Trump knows he broke the law, and he's being indicted for breaking the law.
That
and he said
doesn't
that
mean-
Jack Smith is a deranged
doesn't-
animal for indicting him.
That doesn't mean he doesn't think he's a deranged animal.
For
Do you
indicting
understand?
him? Hold on. I just want to
Yes.
be clear. Your argument here is that Trump knows he committed a crime, and he knows Smith's prosecution of him is legitimate, but then he just still thinks that Smith is a deranged
No, I'm
animal.
granting
and
that
it's not a
even-
rhetorical device.
I'm
used
granting
to
that even if
raise
it's the
attention.
case, I'm granting that even if it's the case that Trump knew this, I'm not even saying that this, I'm not even saying it's true, I'm just granting it.
He did.
Okay? But Trump knows this, he allows it, all things equal, right? That still doesn't mean he doesn't think the guy's a deranged animal. Lies require intent.
Let me give you another example. of this.
No, let's stop.
Okay?
Do you agree lies require intent?
No, I think you're like really
Do
splitting
you
hairs here
agree
in a way
that
makes no
lies
sense.
require intent?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so then it is possible then that Trump does think the guy's a deranged animal, right?
He says that in the context of saying his prosecutions were illegitimate, though.
But that doesn't mean he doesn't think that his prosecutions are illegitimate.
No, he knows that he committed a crime.
Even if he did, it doesn't mean he doesn't think the prosecution's illegitimate. This is the problem with your guys' philosophy. It's terrible.
You think that what I'm saying is terrible, and you're not
Yeah.
twisting yourself into a pretzel to make
Not at all.
excuses for Trump right
I'm
now?
not making excuse. I'm looking at your logic chain. The
Yeah,
logic chain
and
is it requires
you're-
intent.
You're
You
missing
say,
very reasonable assumptions that are demonstrated
well, okay,
time
but
and
hang
time
on,
and time again.
hang on. There you go. Assumptions.
Inferences, I'd say, actually.
Okay, even better, inferences. But
Based
you
on
can't-
a lot of evidence, not just
But
this.
you can't demonstrate it's a lie unless you demonstrate the intent. You can only make the inference. And I'm just following a logical chain, not making a claim to the true or false nature of whether or not it is the case that Trump did A, B, or C. It's irrelevant to the philosophy.
Sure, so I suppose it's hypothetically possible that Trump knows he committed a crime, and it's in his political against his political interest for that crime to be prosecuted and publicized, but he still thinks that the prosecution is illegitimate and that Jack Smith is a deranged animal.
Exactly.
I guess that is possible, Andrew, sure.
Yeah.
The reason I would dispute that, though, is because this is not
I
a
don't
one-off.
care. I don't care why you would dispute it.
Why
I'm
have
just
evidence, right?
explaining.
Do you think it makes
Yeah,
sense
you
to make
can have evidence that
inferences
say-
based on? Hold on.
You can say I have reasonable doubt that Trump is lying.
I just want to
No.
clarify.
He used a declarative statement.
I just want to clarify. Do you think when you have repeated instances of a pattern, we can start making assumptions about the underlying thought process versus if there were just one instance of it?
I think
So
we
like-
can only do that.
So like, for example, when Trump admitted privately after losing the election, it doesn't matter if you won or lost the election, you still have to fight like hell. When he told Mike Pence, you're too honest. When he called Sidney Powell's election
Bro, this
fraud
has
claims-
nothing, hang on,
finish.
hang on.
Let me just, no, let me just finish. I let you finish
Okay,
your
I don't
answer
care
as well.
about your Trump TDS.
No,
We're
you don't have
talking
to care about it.
fascism.
You don't have to care about it.
Oh my
When
God.
Trump privately called Sidney
Totally
Powell's election
delineated from the
fraud,
debate.
nope.
Yeah.
Trump privately called Sidney Powell's election fraud
What does it
claims
have to do with
crazy
fascism?
and linked them to Star Trek.
What
And
does
then-
it have to do with fascism?
It has to do with the point we were just on.
Which is what?
After making clear multiple times that he knew he lost the election, Donald Trump posted.
What does that have to do with fascism?
Pro tip: if you want to know what I'm saying, maybe let me finish saying it.
You're
When
not gonna
Trump
advertise
acknowledges,
fascism.
when Trump acknowledges in private that he lost the election and then says publicly a massive fraud of this type and magnitude allows for the termination of all rules, regulations, and articles, even those found in the Constitution, that is him using something to justify the termination of the Constitution, which he has admitted multiple times he knows is not true. Does that make sense?
What does that have to do with fascism?
It's an example of authoritarianism.
That's not fascism. Different words, different words. Authoritarianism doesn't mean fascism.
It's a pillar of fascism. Brick doesn't mean house, but houses are made of bricks.
Okay, gotcha. Hang on. So when we're talking about authoritarianism, I concede, like I did, that Trump's doing authoritarian stuff that you don't
You actually
like, but
think
that's not
He's an
fascism.
authoritarian?
What does that have to do with anything?
Why are you hiding your position on that?
Who cares? Because it's irrelevant to the debate.
Doesn't mean you have to hide your position on it.
Bro, is it relevant to the debate?
I think it's very relevant to the debate, yes.
Explain how.
Because it would be an example of Trump engaging in authoritarianism, which is going to satisfy one
Why
of my
would
three
it
pillars.
matter if it's the case that I believed that?
I'm not saying it matters, I'm just genuinely asking you to
Great.
explain.
And so it has nothing to do with the debate. Stay on topic.
It does have to do with the debate in regards
It
to
has
satisfying the pillars
nothing
of my
to do
definition
with
of
my
fascism.
position on if Trump is X or Y or Z.
Yeah, because your position can be whatever you want it to be. Bananas and humans are the same. That's all fine. I'm talking about something which satisfies one of my three pillars of fascism, right?
Well, I concede that. I can
For the sake of argument or
I
actually?
I don't need to cede it actually. What does that part have to do with the debate? What?
You actually saying things with your chest and not hiding from what you
So
believe?
nothing. So nothing has nothing to do with it.
Okay,
right?
if you want to be cowardly about it, you don't
Does
have
it
to
has
talk
so
about
it has
That's fine.
nothing? It
That's
has
fine.
nothing. Has nothing to do with it.
That's
It's
fine.
just red herrings. You
Yeah,
just
nothing to do
use
with
red
anything.
herrings?
It's the same as.
It's just
as
red
much-
herrings.
It has as much to do with this as your banana did, Andrew. Sure.
Yeah, it's just red herrings, right?
Of course, yeah.
What does it have to do with the debate, whether I believe it or not?
It has to do with satisfying my three pillars of fascism.
And I concede that we could even grant authoritarianism, right? And it still doesn't satisfy even your own definition of fascism.
No, it doesn't satisfy you inserting your definition into my definition.
Well, we're still on ultranationalism, and I give you tons of examples of what it is, and you just say, well, it's ambiguous.
It's just a category, or you're saying ultranationalism is like an ideology instead of behaviors. I'm saying it's a marketing technique almost for politics.
No, it's pure act.
And
Ultranationalism.
by the way,
is pure
it can be both. But in the context of what I'm saying here, I'm not using it as an ideology
Yeah.
or a behavior. I'm
Mhm.
using it as a rhetorical technique used to justify power.
Can you name an ultranationalist nation that's ultranationalist on rhetoric alone?
On rhetoric alone? China is probably an example. They do a lot of trade with other countries as well.
They're not. How would they? They're not. They
No, I'd say they're
zero
nationalists.
sum.
They're
don't do zero
nationalists.
sum.
They're
They do
nationalists,
by-
not ultranationalists. Yeah.
Yeah, they're nationalists, not ultranationalists. So again,
So
can you name an?
clarify.
No, stop. Can
Just
you
clarify
name?
your question.
Stop, bro. Can you name an ultranationalist nation which is ultranationalist on rhetoric alone?
An ultranational, the United States currently.
The United States is ultranationalist on rhetoric alone,
The head of state, yeah.
but not actually.
He's nationalist, actually, not ultranationalist.
Yeah. So he's a nationalist, not an
His
ultranationalist.
governing style is nationalist, and his propaganda and rhetoric is ultranationalist. I
Yeah.
feel like you definitely understand what I'm saying.
So
like,
he's-
oh yeah, look
so
what I
he's-
taught you.
Yeah. So he's a nationalist, not an ultranationalist. Got it. And
He
you're
governs
saying,
as a
what you're
nationalist,
saying-
and politics is
Yeah,
an
what
ultranationalist.
you're saying is
Is that hard? to
the
understand?
United States is ultranationalist on rhetoric alone.
The United States government uses ultranationalist rhetoric to justify its power grabs, and their actual governance is more akin to nationalism. Does that make sense?
So then how it actually acts is not in an ultranationalist way.
The United States currently, no.
Yeah. But so you,
I think there are
you-
aspects of it, but I
so-
wouldn't say we fully.
So
crossed the
purely, the nation of the United States, in your view, is an ultranationalist nation because
In rhetoric.
politicians use rhetoric.
No, you asked if it was an ultranationalist nation in rhetoric alone. And yes, in rhetoric alone, it is ultranationalist.
Was Mexico ultranationalist?
I'm not familiar with Mexican politics. I don't know.
Canada?
Also not super familiar. I doubt Canada is.
Yeah, maybe not Canada. They're like, what about the UK? Are they ultranationalists on rhetoric alone?
Probably not. They're like big fans of like multilateralism and NATO and like internationalism, which
Okay, so it's the United
internationalism
States.
is probably mutually exclusive
I
with,
mean, the United States is pro all those things too.
under Donald Trump.
Yeah, even under Donald Trump.
How?
What do you mean?
He's been like threatening NATO and tariffing our allies since he came in. How is that multilateral?
Yeah, but he's not fucking. He's worked within the confines of NATO before. In fact, one of the things that Trump did that was pretty good is he
Got them to pay
made.
their fair share.
Yeah, he made them increase their contribution. And the thing is like, that was a good thing. Yeah, right? And that was, by the way, that's unilateral. You might think that that's ultranationalist on rhetoric, but it was like, wasn't it that rhetoric that actually made them do that?
I
But
don't
anyway,
honestly buy you think Trump is like an internationalist in his foreign policy.
I think he's barely nationalist. Barely.
But do you think he's an internationalist and he's a big fan of like the UN and all these treaties and all these deals, multilateralism globally,
Like-
Paris Climate Accord?
Well, when you say internationalism or globalism, what's the distinction?
I'd have to think about that some more. I haven't used the word globalism here, so there might be a lot of overlap there, but it depends on the context you're using it in.
Okay, what about internationalist, meaning?
When I say internationalist, I'm talking about the orientation in foreign policy towards cooperation and creating collectives between different countries to find common agreement and set some kind of standards for trade and international law that are mutually beneficial to everyone.
Yeah, then I would say he's an internationalist, sure.
How?
Because his administration does just that.
Like
They
if you
negotiate
have
trade deals.
allies and then we start antagonizing those allies, isn't that moving away from internationalism?
But wait a second, those are two different claims. So let's separate the claims. Is Trump an internationalist? What does internationalism mean? It means that you're negotiating with other countries for trade and things like.
Yeah, that's what people are just doing these days, like just arguing over definitions and shit. Craziness.
This, then yes, he's definitely doing that. Now, if the second claim is it the case that he may be restricting some of that internationalism, then I can agree to both of those things. Sure,
Are you talking about in rhetoric or in governance?
governance.
Okay, well, just to clarify again, I said he was ultranationalist in rhetoric. In governance, he's nationalist, not ultranationalist.
Yeah.
And I think the extent to which he has shifted away from multilateralism doesn't land us all the way in ultranationalism, but it does land us in nationalism when he is tariffing things like Canadian
I
steel
agree.
and
I agree.
Mexican
He's a
drive.
nationalist, just barely a
He
nationalist.
justifies his power with all nationalist rhetoric.
That's not so sure about. Like, for instance, again, the gold card, the Trump gold card.
Yeah.
How's that ultranationalist?
It's not.
It's not.
He doesn't run around campaigning on it because his supporters hate it. They also hate the H-1B visa.
Yeah, maybe, but the thing is like.
That actually proves my point.
Hang
That
on,
his
there
rhetoric
was-
has created a movement that
No,
hates the actual policy.
there was rhetoric that Trump utilized, saying that he was going to say, you know, if you want to come into the country, it's going to be $1.5 million. He did campaign with that. That is in fact
Well,
true.
that's
He did.
not. That is pretty.
Switch to TurboTax and file your own taxes free in the app if you didn't file with us last year. Just file TurboTax Do-It-Yourself
crazy.
by February 28th. Download now.
And yeah, they've tried to like change the definition of some words, like because everyone knows the definition is one thing, so they'll try and change it retroactively. Like, oh, we changed the definition. It's like, no, it doesn't work like that, guys. That's always been the definition. Y'all try and change it now.
There's a Harbor Freight store in your neighborhood, so stop by, neighbor.
You tackled the Mountain View Monster for a third time this week. At RW Knudsen, we crush.
Beckett. Oh my God, hi.
Wow.
So you're living in the city now?
A little outside of it.
That is pretty nationalist rhetoric. That's saying I'm putting up a fear.
I don't know. I think the maintenance might come into my apartment, so I might stop my stream if they do. I'm not sure if they are or not though.
Pretty high barrier to let people in.
No, that's not nationalist rhetoric. Nationalist rhetoric would be the people who are here already. They get the priority over everybody else, right? That's our nation first. That's what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
So, in this case, this other foreign national.
Yeah, I haven't used Wikipedia in years. Even the founder of Wikipedia doesn't use Wikipedia, and he admits that it's like a fucking propaganda fucking website. No. Someone's laughing in the hallway.
Being able to buy dual citizenry would be the opposite of nationalism.
What is the purpose, though, of him saying we're going to increase the fee to come to the United States? He's appealing to his ultra-nationalist base by saying we are not going to let people come in unless they
appealing to
pay
his
us.
nationalist base. Ultra-nationalists would hate that.
I'm not necessarily, no.
Well, that's literally what you just got done saying. You just got done saying his base hates this policy. They're ultra-nationalists. So therefore, sir, ultra-nationalists would hate that policy. You just contradicted yourself again.
Say it again?
You just got done saying.
Yes.
His base hated the policy because they're ultra-nationalists.
Mm-hmm.
And then you just contradicted that very same fucking statement 5 seconds later. So one, which is true. It
Hold
can
on,
be P and
because-
not P.
Again, are you talking about rhetoric or governance here? You keep conflating the two.
No,
It's very confusing.
in this case, we already determined this is a governance policy.
And governance has nothing to do with any of my claims about
And even on the rhetoric, it's contradictory.
I think I might go to Shake Shack today and get one of those shakes.
Because even on the rhetoric, if rhetorically his base is ultra-nationalist, but they hate the policy, he's promoting the policy, right? Which he did. Then
Which specifically,
how
the
would that
gold card?
rhetorically? How
Wait,
would that rhetorically?
are you talking about the gold card or him charging like
No, I'm
4 students
talking about
for-
him saying that he was going to charge people millions of dollars to get citizenship in his first election cycle. He talked about this multiple times.
The gold card? Is that what you're
Not the gold, not just the gold card, but not his first time
Yeah.
running.
Really?
He may mention multiple.
I've never really looked it up. I guess Portland has a lot of good options, but it's kind of spread out, I guess. And a lot of places are kind of expensive too. That's a real Mexican burrito sandwich. I feel like there's a lot of good definitely a lot of good Mexican places in Portland. There's a food cart not too far from here. Like a good street tacos. And there's this one place. It's like it's by the library. Something. It might be like something taqueria. And they probably got a good burrito there. Authentic Italian food. Yeah, that sounds good too. I've been looking for like a really good, I need a place with just like a solid spaghetti and meatballs, but I don't trust Old Spaghetti Factory.
Times about having foreign nationals pay millions of dollars to become an American citizen.
To clarify, the first time that Trump ran for president, I don't think that he was actually exhibiting anything above like stage 1 or 2 fascism. I think a better description there would be probably like populist, a liberal populist.
Independence, Oregon? Okay.
So I think the rhetoric, if you juxtapose between the 2016 campaign of Trump and especially the 2024 campaign of Trump, where the whole theme is I and your retribution, we're going to bring back the golden age, we're going to lock all these thugs and criminals up. Those are very different illusions and very different pieces of imagery.
They're pure sophistry. So what in the second term?
How's it sophistry?
What in the second term is the only thing in the second term that gets into this is just J6? Is that it?
J6 was his first term.
No, but in his term governing,
Yeah.
is it just J6 that now makes the delineation?
Western Oregon.
Delineation of what?
Of now he's like a stage 4
Lasagna
fascist?
fiend.
Yeah, it has to do with how he's using.
What's up, Red PNWTV 503? Yeah, lasagna. Yeah, I love like a a lasagna with like hella cheese on it, like 5 cheese.
Out.
Okay, what?
Oh, okay. Yeah. Once I get a vehicle, I'm about to explore Oregon some more.
What is the delineation of how he's using power now versus his first term?
He's indicting political opponents. He's openly defying court orders and saying he wants to defy court orders. He is desecrating rule of.
It's pretty cheap if I wanted to take a trip to like Salem or whatever. It's only like a $12 train ride to get there. Might be a fun trip.
Law by not prosecuting federal crimes of people who are allies of his. He is consistently lying to Congress, violating Congress's laws.
Did he do all of that in
congressional
his
funds.
first term?
No, nothing near what he's doing now.
Well, wait a second. We're back to scale here. There's no threshold delineation. You're not saying, all you're saying is that they just got to meet the requirement. Which of those requirements didn't he meet in the first term? Well, in order to be a stage 4 fascist, what's the requirement?
He has to be governing in conjunction with elites in his party and trying to basically push the envelope as much as possible in terms of fascism without fully letting the mask slip, because that's where Paxton says stage 5, either the elites can end up winning and become standard authoritarianism, or
Okay.
the fascist leader is going to win.
And is that what he's doing right now? In your
I think we're
estimation?
currently in stage 4.
Okay. What, in the first term, right? How did he not do that? He was still, from your view, like, weren't you guys impeaching him and shit because you were accusing him of
For
doing the
the,
exact
for the
same things?
Ukraine phone call for the Biden thing?
Sure.
Yeah, again, I'm just giving you examples in a second term that are way more flagrant. It's a more consistent pattern over time. So you can isolate things and try to look at them in a vacuum, but if you look
But
at
it sounds like
connective-
he's just doing the same shit that he was doing that you hated him for before.
No, he didn't do a lot of this shit in his first term.
What things?
He didn't defy the Supreme Court.
In his first term?
Yeah,
Okay, which defiance are we talking about?
the Kilmar Garcia return.
Oh, back
I tried asking you about this earlier.
All right, gotcha. Okay, so let me ask you this: would he have? Do you think he would have
In his first term?
Mhm.
I think probably, yeah, because his administration was filled a lot more with like sort of like establishment Republicans and traditional civil servants.
I
And
see.
now it's filled with crazy boys.
So he was always a fascist.
I mean, stage 2 fascism would still be fascism, sure.
Yeah, so he was just always a fascist, and he was waiting for
His movement
time.
is always a fascist movement. Yeah.
I see. I got it now. All right. So backing up, let's just look at the totality here.
Yeah.
The
Who's AG? Attorney General?
totality is that Trump's a nationalist, not an ultra-nationalist. Okay?
In his governance, not his rhetoric.
Yeah, and the United States is currently a rhetorically fascist nation. Is that right?
Yeah, it uses fascist propaganda, fascist imagery to justify power. I mean, you can boil it down to just rhetoric, but rhetoric serves a very instrumental purpose in politics. I'm sure you'd agree.
And
Mobilizes people.
you think that is a more powerful way to describe the historicity of a movement which essentially led and contributed to the massive reconstruction of nations post World War II. That you're rhetorically a fascist. Let me ask, do you think that has no loaded moral baggage? There's like no
fascist or ultra-nationalist.
Well, actually both.
Fascist probably has a lot more baggage than
more.
ultra-nationalist does. Yeah, but
And
that
do you
baggage is also
think-
going to vary. I've debated
So-
people who say it's based that he's a fascist.
So let me
I
ask you
agree.
this: do you think that when a person is calling another person a fascist, they ever mean you're a rhetorical fascist? Ever?
I'm not saying fascism overall is just rhetoric. I'm saying ultra-nationalism in my definition of fascism is rhetorical.
Yeah, but when you
Fascism
call
also has to do
Trump a
with behavior.
fascist, you mean that in the United States, if they say the United States is fascist, do you think that they ever mean the United States is rhetorically fascist? Ever?
Who's they?
Anybody who says this?
It depends on who you're talking to. I think that probably people like Jason Stanley would agree with what I'm saying.
Yeah, but like
I think
the
it's like
common
an ego
person,
authority or
the
something.
common person. If
I
you
think
walk
the
around with a
common-
common person and you're
Yeah.
like, is the United States a fascist nation? Do you think any of them are going to be like, it's
Just to
rhetorically,
be
it's
clear,
rhetorically
maybe
fascist?
we'll find a little piece of agreement here. I think the vast majority of people that use the word fascism have no idea what they're talking about. Like, they don't even know what the different things are.
I definitely agree with this.
Because I'm
the
at
one
least
talking to.
referencing a school of thought, and most people don't even know that there are schools of thought in this, and they don't know what they are. So,
Yeah, but I do. And then the thing is like, what's confusing to me here is you keep on saying that your definition has more use than mine. And yet,
Diagnostically, yeah.
yeah, and yet, if you were to ask a common person which view of fascism they're talking about when they're talking about fascism, they're definitely going to defer to mine. Nobody's going to be talking about rhetorical fascism, dude.
People on the right might defer to yours, but I think if we both laid
No,
out our
everybody's
definitions-
going to defer to mine, dude.
If
Come
we
on.
both laid out our definitions, I think you'd probably agree that left-wing people would agree with my definition.
No, I don't think so. I think if I
Really?
were to go over to any random Democrat, just a random one, who says, yeah, I voted for like Biden, and any random Republican is like, yeah, I voted for Trump. And I was like, here's our different definitions. This guy thinks we're in a rhetorical fascist nation. And what I believe,
not the straw man me.
you do believe we're in a rhetorically fascist nation.
Rhetorically ultra-nationalist and ultra-nationalist rhetoric.
No, you said
is a pillar of
rhetorically
fascism.
fascist, too, right? Don't you?
That's not my overall
No?
argument.
Okay,
The United
sorry.
States government
Yeah,
is
okay.
fascistic. One of the pillars
Okay,
is
yeah.
rhetoric.
Gotcha, okay. He thinks we're in a rhetorically ultra-nationalist state, right, in stage 4 fascism, based on the fact that he thinks that there's too much authoritarianism, and he believes that we're ultra-nationalist rhetorically. That's what he believes. Rhetorically, we're ultra-nationalists, which I think is just pure
That'd be a
equivocation.
pretty uncharitable and weird way to frame
Well,
my
wait a
definition,
second,
but I
but
suppose
it-
you could
but-
say that.
But it is. You think that that Trump's a nationalist. He just uses ultra-nationalist rhetoric.
To be clear, I break it up into 3 categories for a reason. 1 is the fuel and the pretext used for the power grab. 2 is the actual power grab and the consolidation of power. And 3 is how that power is entrenched and used against enemies. Those are all very distinct categorically as well.
Yeah,
Some are
but
more
the problem
rhetorically
is
focused,
like
and some are
those-
more government focused.
If those pillars revolve around ultranationalism, and your belief is that
Not just ultranationalism, you zeroed in on that.
That's
also
the
appeal
pillar.
to a mythic past.
but the pillar without ultranationalism doesn't work.
What you listening to?
All
Any
the other
of the one
things,
things it doesn't work.
yeah, but all those other things work in context with almost everything else, absent ultranationalism.
Ultranationalism is
Yeah.
a big part of the context.
It's like 80% doing 80%.
It's actually the warmest thing I own. Gets me sauna warm. What am I not listening to? A lot of stuff right now.
Lifting or something. It's doing a
At
lot
all.
of the
I mean,
lifting.
at most, you could say it's doing 33.333% of the lifting, because this is talking about the justification fascists use to obtain and use power. It's not talking about their tactics in using power and how they actually obtain and consolidate power. Those
Yeah,
are
but
different
this-
questions.
wait,
Might have to check that one out. This is Andrew Wilson and some guy debating if Trump's a fascist or not.
Well, wait a second. I would say, but if I was talking to a person, fascism is a historic movement which utilizes these key categorizations in the fascist states. I can point out, here was the policies, the philosophy, the government type. That's what you want to watch out for when it comes to fascism.
Mhm.
And then you give your definition and say, the thing that qualifies mine is that right now he's using rhetoric, which is ultranationalist, but he's just a nationalist. You don't think that, you
Not
don't
what I
think
would
that,
say.
but that is what you're saying.
I would say he appeals to a mythical past and ultranationalism to manufacture consent for the consolidation of governmental power, which he then weaponizes against his enemies and uses it to entrench the power.
Yeah,
further.
but I would just counter with, yeah, so do all politicians. They're always talking about
Some politicians are authoritarian.
Yeah, they're always, yeah, they're all, I mean, yeah, kind of. A lot of them want to, well, every president has basically attempted to entrench the executive branch a little bit more, almost
Which other
all of it.
Minute before we go into Q&A.
Sure. Which other politician?
Did you mean Terrence Hemingway or did you mean Ernest Hemingway? Because I'm not sure who Terrence is.
Has defied a court on purpose?
Well, this would be going back to
Andrew
the,
Jackson, maybe?
yeah, this would be going back to, well, in that particular case, if I remember right, just off the top of my head, he was trying to do some kind of movement with Indians, and
Something like
the court said no. He went ahead and executed it anyway. But all the way back to the very beginning, the founders were contrary to their own beliefs. I mean, starting with the Whiskey Rebellion. So, and by the way, we can look at other things too, like Kent State, for instance. What happened at Kent State, various things like this. and we can say, okay, that's authoritarianism.
There have
Gone
certainly
too
been
far.
flashes of authoritarianism in American
Well,
history,
we can also
especially
say that
during
there's
wartime.
been, but we've also
The
said
Japanese
pretty-
internment camps.
Yeah, but we can also say there's authoritarianism which has been pretty good, that we appreciate. You know, I mean, it's like yeah, sure. Like for instance, when we stopped segregation in schools and the National Guard was deployed, so that the schools that didn't want there to be desegregation had to desegregate. That's good authoritarianism, right?
I don't know that I'd call that authoritarianism.
Well, they federalized the state National Guard.
But a big part of my authoritarian pillar includes the words bad
They
faith.
federalized the National Guard against the will of the
It was an
governor.
expansion of power. Authoritarianism, I'm including bad faith in that, right?
That doesn't fucking mean anything. What does that mean?
Bad faith?
Yeah, what does it mean?
Do you agree that someone can engage with...
Don't ask me a question, answer mine. What does that
Okay,
mean?
I'm asking the audience then. Does everyone agree that someone can
God, this
engage
guy.
with laws and institutions that they don't like in good faith to reform them for the better? And someone could also engage with those same laws and institutions in bad faith to delegitimize them and entrench their own personal
That
power?
doesn't tell us what bad faith means here.
Oh, intentionally lying.
That's all bad faith means?
In this context, sure. Do you want, like, the etymology of the word bad faith?
Kind of.
Okay, we have, like, what, 1 minute left?
But I mean, the thing is here is like, the whole idea is that you have to engage in the laws in good faith, but then we're just back to intention. Because your intention, then
You
you're
have
not
demonstrated
lying.
intent from Donald Trump time and time and
Oh,
time
no,
again.
it's not a demonstration of intent. You have to know the intent in order to, or at least make such strong inferences as to have no doubt.
I think these are the obvious
But we're talking
inferences. I
about
think you have to
historic-
justify why you
But
don't
hang on,
make
we're
those
talking about the
inferences.
historic movements here. Like,
Andrew,
hang on.
The burden is on you here.
Yeah, and I'm giving you the burden. We're talking about authoritarianism, right? I would say that it's definitely an authoritarian act, and was at the time, and it was very controversial, and it was cited as being authoritarian, that when there was desegregation, that the governor was against the federalization of his National Guard.
Is this
and that
when
was
LBJ
done-
said them?
Yeah, this was done anyway.
I would say autocracy might be a better word. There was autocratic,
Carson,
but
Pete
authoritarianism, again, at least how I'm using it here, implies intent, and the burden there.
Sometime during the summer, I went up that direction, whatever. I guess that's south. Yeah, I think I went towards southeast or whatever, towards the Smash Burger place. And I ran into some kind of car show, and there was actually a bunch of bikers there in like biker vests. I think it was Mongols actually. Saw some Mongols, and there was like a car show going on. Oh yeah, and last time I was in Tacoma, Washington, I saw someone driving around in like one of those old school ass, really old school ass, like super old Fords, like one of the original ones almost, like. Saw him driving that around. I was like, what the fuck? That's like a piece of history right there.
Is on you, because I've given you so many examples of Trump knowing he's breaking the law, but then when he speaks about it publicly, he's basically using it to weaponize.
Yeah, but this isn't, but here we're talking.
Can you explain why that doesn't prove he's lying?
Because what we're doing right, well, you want me to prove a negative?
You're saying that just because Trump admits constantly behind the scenes that he's a criminal, but
How
then
can
he-
I-
That's what's up. I wish I could have an old vehicle like that. That was like trustworthy.
How can I prove a negative though?
I can
That's weird.
clarify what I'm asking you, and then you can critique it if you'd like.
Because the old ones, the old models have the best designs, for sure.
I'm asking you if we have multiple instances of Trump saying in private, basically, I know I'm breaking the law, I want to break the law, and then publicly he says, anyone who accuses me of breaking the law is an enemy of the state.
Mhm.
Why would we not assume that he's lying there for political
Whoa,
gain?
wait. I'm not saying you can't make these inferences.
Why is that
I'm
not the
saying-
most reasonable inference, I guess?
Well, here's the thing, right? When you have something which is contested, if I say Adam's a fucking liar,
Oh yeah, true. Yeah, I wish I could build shit too.
right? I'm very cautious about
I
saying
could
that.
probably if I was
because
living somewhere.
While I think
less
that
bad.
you might be saying things which are untrue, right? That doesn't mean I think you believe that they're untrue. in the example of Trump has been very consistent, especially post
Trump knows
J6.
they're untrue.
He's been very consistent, especially post J6, about things like he still thinks the election was stolen from him.
No, he doesn't. He just says that in public.
You know, the thing is, though, right, is like...
You have quotes of him admitting it
Yeah.
behind the scenes.
Yeah, to who?
His White House.
Is it
chief of
fucking
staff.
recorded? Is it fucking... You got an audio recording, fucker?
We do for the classified documents case, actually. He says, see, as president would have declassified it. Now I can't, you know, but this is still a secret.
From
And
Sidney
the
Powell?
broader-
From Sidney Powell, no.
Sidney Powell is the January 6th case. You're asking for a recording. We actually do have a recording
Let's
in
hear
the
it.
classified documents.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Awesome.
Pull it up.
Hey, can I play that real quick, James, before we switch to the
Yeah,
Q&A?
play it.
Yes, and then we'll go to the Q&A shortly. If you haven't yet, folks, hit that like button no matter where you're watching.
Okay.
This was done by the military, given to me. Hey,
What do the Hardy Meatball, the Bold Italian, and every other Firehouse sub have in common? They're freshly prepared, toasted, and stacked with flavor.
Man, oh shit doesn't cost so much. Why's everything gotta be so expensive? High five, cat. High five. Man, I hope the maintenance doesn't bother me today. I don't want to be bothered.
probably, yeah.
You even hear him saying, we can show these documents, right? Because he knows it's classified. And keep listening.
Yeah. Declass, as president, I could have declassed it. Now I can't. You know.
Wait a second, hang on. Stop
See,
it.
as president, I could have
Actually,
declassified it. Now I
actually, hang on,
can't.
you left out a key word there. What was the
As
key word you
president,
left
I
out?
could have
Right,
declassified it, now I
before
can't.
that, he said right. He said, well, we can show these, right? That sounded like a question, not a declarative statement.
No, he's telling them.
I don't know, the
of
context
this-
doesn't seem so clear to me.
He was showing Department of Defense war planes against Iran to a bunch of reporters at a dinner party. That was the context. This is
It
also included in the
sounded,
Jack
it
Smith
sounded
indictment.
like a question.
It's not a question. He isn't
I
even
don't
claiming-
know.
He
I
doesn't
don't
even claim it
know.
was a question. That's not even his excuse for this. So you're making an excuse for him that he doesn't make himself. That's fine. He
Yeah,
just
so,
says,
no, no, it sounds
what
like a
he's
question.
saying.
Do you see what I mean
his-
by?
his defense of
hang on,
this
do you see
is
why
that
I
it wasn't
say,
actually
I don't care about
classified,
your
it was
TDS,
something
I'm
else.
pointing out.
No, I'm telling you
Do
what
you
Trump
see,
said.
that's
You got
fine.
Trump devotion
Do you
syndrome.
see why it is that I would be like, well, wait a second. When you make all of these inferences, right? I'm going to infer this, I'm going to
You might
infer
as
this,
well.
I'm going to infer this. What we have to do is accept your framework for these things first before we can dive in.
What's
This inference being true, that's
Right.
one. And the second is
No.
that it's not a determination about intent itself. And so that's why I'm always cautious about calling someone a liar. Now, if you want to come back and have a debate on these specific issues, I'm happy to do that. Cool. In this particular case, though, right, you've never demonstrated how fucking Trump was fascist ever, and still haven't.
I didn't demonstrate it according to your extremely narrow standard that you were extremely
No, not even
stubborn
according
about.
to your
So,
own
yeah.
standard.
I explained my standard multiple times. If you still don't understand it after a 2-hour debate, that's fine.
Yeah, but do you realize, though, that you saying, oh, I just have this standard, we're back to the lighter thing. This lighter's fascistic because you agree it's fascistic.
Okay, this bottle cap's fascistic, my chapstick's fascistic, everything's
Yeah,
fascistic.
this cup of coffee's fascistic. Just
Yeah.
anything that I agree to is going to be fascistic.
James, don't tell me your microphone's fascistic too.
We're not going to actually make a comparison between the worldviews. We're not actually going to talk about the history
We're
of the
just gonna
thing.
do pedantic
This might-
questions and going in
I
circles
think
for
this
2
might be a
hours.
good opportunity to jump into the Q&A. We have a lot of questions, so we're going to move fast. Thank you very much for your questions. And folks, as mentioned, at the bottom right of your screen, you can see part of the lineup for DebateCon 7. Click that link in the description box, also pinned at the top of the chat. It'll have debaters such as David Wood, Apostate Prophet, Daniel Hakikachu, Andrew's buddy, and Jake Muslim Metaphysician. You don't want to miss it. It's going to be amazing. Go ahead, Adam.
Can I derail quick? I don't want to derail the Q&A. I'll be back in like 2 minutes. It's okay. Okay. Thanks.
Woman, get a cup of coffee, please.
It's gonna be amazing. But like I said, whether you're watching at Modern Day Debate, or maybe I think Adam might be streaming as well, or if you're watching at The Crucible, hit the like button. Maybe you thought that Andrew or Adam was more persuasive tonight. Whoever it was
me.
If you want more people to see it, hit like, as that will make it so that the algorithm pushes it out. And mysterious algorithm. Other stuff. Consider hitting that share button as well, and that goes for all channels that you're watching at. Let me check if Adam is streaming right now. Adam, let's see here. But we do appreciate your support, so thank you very much for that. And this has been a tremendous debate. I let the dialogue go a little bit longer than usual because the conversation was just fantastic. But other housekeeping things at the bottom right of your screen, as I mentioned, that's DebateCon 7. If you're not able to make it, you're like, listen, I'm in Australia, Antarctica, whatever it is, I can't make it too far. You can watch it live from home by becoming a channel member at the final word level. Now, Andrew and I are going to have a quick debate while Adam is gone on whether or not Lord of the Rings or Game of Thrones is better.
Lord of the Rings is better.
I don't know. I have to rewatch it though, because it's been like 10 years since I watched it. So
I got one argument, and I'll always win this debate. The ending of Game of Thrones.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah,
I win.
I think it's, and then Lord of the Rings had so many epic awards, but so maybe
Is Game of Thrones worth watching? I was considering starting it.
What?
The ending is horrible.
It's good. It's not horrible. It's just unexpected.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it doesn't ruin it.
This one, thanks for your question. Diet Pepsi says, betting here in the beginning that Andrew will quibble on the Gentile definition versus others that depend on Part C.
Well, I didn't quibble at all. I was very specific about what I think. I think that fascism is a historic movement. I don't think that the criteria is adequately fit. I think it's very nebulous. I think that it was very nebulous, the definitions of ultranationalism, which were given by my opponent and not by me. I feel like the quibbling was on the oppositional side, not my own.
This one coming in from Jonathan Tessier says, was Canada Emergency Act on the Peaceful Convoys practice? Tell after the answers of both. I'll answer and then I'll tell what this person wants to tell you guys. But
Why is South America that act?
or Canada's Emergency Act on the Peaceful Convoys practice.
I have to know more about the act. I don't think one act in isolation could be fashioned legitimately
But there are fascist actions.
It would be fascistic.
That's what it's asking.
Is it sure I'm not South America to get so?
Okay, so I would say no. It's not. And fascism is pure act. It's systemic. It's not equal to anything within the idea of action. I don't think that that's the case. So I would say no. I think that it was fucking some authoritarian ass shit. Sure.
You got it. They said it was judged illegal and the appeal of Trudeau was rejected. Greek archaeology says, I'm watching Smoky Man with my secular humanist husband, Matt, heart emoji. This one from Mr. Black says, Trump and all of them, both sides, all registered voters, both sides are.
I'm gonna restart my stream.